Our story begins with meeting the prince of the royal family. It was not the first time Jamie Walton had woken up from a dream he had been tired of for a long time. He is the eldest son of the Walton royal family and its legitimate heir, but no one knows who he was before he was reborn in this body. During another battle more than 50,000 years ago, he found himself in a difficult position, but did not admit his defeat. Fighting with the 12 gods, this magician declared that they could not defeat him because all they could do was seal him. With a loud laugh, he declared that he was not against this, but warned his enemies that after his rebirth, the bright lights of the 12 gods would be plunged into total darkness. Known in the past as Diablo Wolfer, he promised that he would not let them die easily and they would regret defying him. Thus the 12 gods were able to seal him, but after a huge amount of time, a crack appeared in their barrier thanks to which he was able to escape and eventually reborn as a son of this family. Being the son of the royal family, he received an incredible amount of attention and his parents were delighted with his appearance. This was the first reincarnation of a great magician from the past. As a child, he tried to say something in response to his annoying parents, but his vocal apparatus was not developed enough. He became an aristocrat, dearly loved by his parents. About 9 years have passed since that moment. Still, he was forced to play his role as a child. For a great magician who lived more than 50,000 years, it was very tiring. Resting from the excess of attention, he understood that another boring day was waiting for him. When he woke up, a nanny came to see him, who also admired the young heir of the family. Jamie behaved decently and always treated his elders with respect. Having high manners, when asked what he was doing at such an early hour, the guy politely replied that he was admiring the beautiful morning sky. Not only his parents were annoying, but also the nanny who complimented him during every meeting. The good woman offered to help the heir to get dressed, because his parents were already waiting for him. As is customary in the royal family, they spent breakfast, lunch, and dinner together. Approaching the door to the dining room, the nanny politely announced that the young master had arrived for breakfast. Realizing what was waiting for him, Diablo Wolfer sighed heavily. As soon as he entered, an incredible amount of care from the family was directed in his direction. The great magician from the past played his role perfectly. In addition to the heir, the royal family also had a daughter. Their parents never got tired of noticing how cute and beautiful their children are. The only daughter of a noble family, Belle was actually not the real mother of the young master. Jamie's father was the head of the Walton royal family, one of the 5 swordmasters of their kingdom named Arjuno. Although he has a really impressive status, and is a formidable and powerful swordsman, he is madly obsessed with his wife and children. Sister Sarah was much younger than her promising brother. Jamie got along well with her and played along in every way. During every joint meal, he could not avoid her attention. Perfectly playing his role, he caused great joy in the parents, who were very proud of their children. This happened almost every day. The great magician behaved like a child, while in fact he would like to enjoy solitude. Returning to his room was a real relief for him. It was difficult for him to get used to such a way of life. Over time, it became easier because he had a greater variety of occupations. This mansion didn't seem like such a bad place to him. His family's private library was the most interesting place. In addition, Jamie got an interesting pet. Being alone, he could call him to help him. And also thanks to the fact that he was reborn, he got a new ability. His hatred for the 12 gods did not subside, because they continued to exist even after 50,000 years. Because of such a young age, he was not yet capable of much. Since there was little information about dark magic in the era of his reincarnation, time was on his side. Experiencing hatred for the 12 gods, he dreamed of how to get rid of their intrusive existence. But at one point, his happy solitude was interrupted by a visit from a nanny. The woman said that it was time to read children's books together with the mistress. Every time these words seemed like torture for him. But because of his young age, he was forced to show politeness so as not to reveal his secret. Sometimes playing the sweet boy was so hard that he missed the times when he was sealed in the trap of the gods. Unlike him, the younger sister, as always, was delighted with such a pastime. But as soon as the reading of the book began, Sarah fell asleep. After reading a fairy tale about a magician named Heinz, a caring mother asked if the children liked it. With a smile and a twinkle in his eyes, James said that he wanted to become as cool a magician as the main character of the fairy tale. Mom did not even doubt that he would achieve success. Because despite the fact that he is only 9 years old, he defeated all 3 magic teachers who were hired to train him. He gently put his hand on the head of his beloved son. The lady said that his father invited him to visit the strongest magician among those he knows. After these words, the magician had hoped that he would finally meet a worthy contemporary master. After reading a fairy tale with his mother, Jamie decided to do something more interesting and went to the library. Unfortunately for him, he couldn't find anything interesting. And another book about using mana turned out to be a waste of time. It was lunchtime, and Jamie decided to come before the nanny went to pick him up. But as soon as he left the library, he saw a strange stranger in front of him. The gray-haired man was looking at one of the statues in their luxurious mansion, and was surprised that the Walton family was using a rare artifact as a decoration in front of the entrance to the dining room. The young master had never seen this person before. When the old man paid attention to him and greeted him, Diablo Wolfer, for the first time since his rebirth, saw such a large amount of mana that it seemed to literally flow from the owner's body. Evaluating the stranger by modern standards, the mage from the past assumed that before him was a master of at least the 7th level. He still didn't understand how he managed to sneak inside their mansion so unnoticed. Jamie was suspicious of him, although the old man did not look hostile. The young master aroused special interest in the advanced master of magic. While Jamie was trying to find out who he was and what he was doing inside their house, the old man analyzed his mana and was surprised that he was already a mid-level master at such a young age. Of course, the well-bred heir of the royal family understood that he had started their conversation wrongly. But he was annoyed by the calm demeanor and fixed gaze of the stranger. The 9-year-old magician was enraged by this situation and decided that the stranger should be taught a lesson. The boy's behavior surprised the stranger, and he became curious about what would happen next. Jamie could not believe that in response to his use of mana, a stranger would dare to do the same. He was filled with anger at the fact that some old man had dared to test him. His pride was justified because in his past life he was almost able to destroy all the gods with his own strength, concentrating the mana on his fingers. Jamie repeated the attack, with which he was able to defeat all the magic teachers he employed. But in the end, this attack did not live up to expectations, and did not bring any result at all. It became clear that the old man significantly surpassed him in mana reserves and the ability to use it for defensive purposes. Seeing what the heir of the royal family was capable of, the old man was simply in awe and could not believe that such a capable magician was only 9 years old. After a moment, a mage of at least the 7th level shouted that this was a good request, after which he began to form a counterattack. This mage was significantly superior to those whom the heir had encountered earlier. His attack seemed very serious. But in this situation there was one thing that prevented Jamie from reacting seriously. He understood from the very beginning that this attack was not aimed at him, so there was no point in ducking. The old man was simply shocked that despite the demonstration of frightening power, the boy did not even blink an eye. Suddenly, for both sides, the swordmaster, Argino, intervened in their show of strength. Dissatisfied with the situation, the host turned to the guest and declared that he had gone too far. After that, he turned to his dear son and asked if everything was all right. In response, Jamie began to behave confusedly, and to take revenge on the impudent old man, he decided to cry demonstratively. As soon as Mr. Argino saw the tears of his beloved son, he, in a threatening tone, asked the magician to step aside for a serious dialogue. The old man felt awkward, seeing that the boy's reaction was fake. In response, a master of magic named Marcus Linmel began to laugh loudly, and said that for him this situation seemed like a very funny conflict, after which he admitted that he was very jealous of the count. As it turned out, this magician was the man who Mr. Walton had hired to train his son. Their conversation began with the count's dissatisfaction with the fact that the magician behaved recklessly in relation to the heir of the Walton family. In response, the old man said with a smile while sipping tea that he knew about it. Hearing such carefree words, Mr. Argino got angry, for no reason. The old man asked him to listen to him and calm down, because the swordmaster's aura exerted great pressure on him. Marcus decided to start the conversation with a question about how much the count knows about his son. A man who spent all his free time raising his own children could not understand what he was talking about. As it turned out, the old man meant that he simply admired the genius of the heir to the Walton family. In response, the excited count said that this was the reason why he entrusted him to the best of the magicians he knew, but it was not clear to him why the old man took and suddenly attacked his son. The respected magician said that, most likely the local count does not really know everything about his son. Mr. Walton couldn't help but listen to his words about his son's magical abilities, because Macri considers Linmel to be the strongest 8th grade master among all living mages. Based on this, the father began to worry that someone like him would hardly recognize his son, and maybe even Jamie was not as good as he thought. Noticing the hostess's excitement, the old man warned him that he was absolutely serious. Unexpectedly for the swordmaster, the 8th level mage declared that he could not take his son as an apprentice, as he simply could not handle him. With a sincere smile, the great master of magic admitted that Jamie could read all his actions. The swordsman doubted his words, thinking that this was impossible no matter how smart his son was. To dispel his father's misunderstanding, the old man explained that his son immediately understood that his spell was flying by. The great magician admitted that he was surprised that the heir of the Walton family did not even flinch when a very strong magic was aimed at him. Then, with a very satisfied look, the old man declared that Jamie had already become a third-class magician thanks only to self-study. He believed that if they closed their eyes to the limit of his body, then his level is even higher than the 4th. The Grandmaster seriously declared that the heir of the Walton family is not just a genius, but a real monster who needs no teacher. He believed that the son of a great swordsman only needed support, then he would continue to improve himself. After these words, he declared that the Count had born a legendary magician of the 9th class. As expected, the Count was simply shocked by the Grandmaster's words. After that, the magician stood up and asked for forgiveness for attacking the heir of the Walton family. After the solemn announcement, the old man began to use the magic of teleportation and disappeared. Count Arjuna Welton was left alone. He was not ready to hear something so shocking, so he wanted to think about what to do next. The evening came. The great magician from the past, who was reincarnated in the body of the heir of the Walton family, once again felt incredible fatigue due to relations with such a caring and attentive family. As soon as his mother found out about what had happened between her son and the magician, she threw herself at him with tears and promised that she would deal with the old man who offended Jamie. The guy thought that despite the hard day, everything was not so bad, because he managed to see the real spell of this time. It wasn't that bad. The reincarnated Diablo Wolfer believed that the composition, technique, and balance of this spell were at the highest level. But it was not Mr. Marcus who impressed him more, but his father, Count Arjuna Welton. With a smile on his face, Jamie said aloud that such a strong swordsman deserved to be his father. Suddenly for the heir, Mr. Marcus appeared on his bed and with a sincere smile asked what made the young heir feel such joy. An experienced magician from the past was simply shocked by the sudden appearance of a magician in his room. The old man suggested that Jamie had not noticed him because he was too absorbed in his thoughts. Demonstrating his acting game, the guy got scared and fell on the floor, after which he panicked and asked what the strange old man had forgotten in his room. With a loud laugh, the old man was surprised that such a young genius could be so easily frightened. First of all, Jamie wondered in confusion how he got into his room. Getting up from the bed, Marcus Lindmel answered that he used teleportation. From the very beginning, Jamie understood that he was not an ordinary old man, but he could not believe that he was able to teleport to his room without any problems. Pointing his finger at the young man, the magician noticed that the heir was modest when he was with his father, after which he wondered why the boy behaved differently when he was in front of strangers. Getting up from the floor, the heir grumpily replied that family and strangers are completely different things. Then the old man approached the heir of the Walton family and unexpectedly said that he was not strong enough to train such a rare genius. After that he held out a magical memoir in his direction. The guy wondered why the old man decided to give him this book. In response, the old man shocked him by saying that the magic Jamie uses is already outdated. Jamie began to feel uncomfortable with such an expression, which seemed to him humiliating. With a smile on his face, the old man thought that his reaction meant that he was touched by the gift. Telling about the book, the old man said that it contains many of his own spells and that the heir Walton will be the first to read it. Hearing his words, the boy immediately started reading because he was filled with interest in what kind of spells this great magician created and how much the magic of this time differs from his own. Noticing the boy's interest, the old man decided to distract him from reading before saying goodbye. With a serious look, the great magician declared that he had great hopes for the future young master of the Walton family. Leaving the room with the help of teleportation, he said that he was very interested in what the young genius would be when they met next time. Saying goodbye to him, Jamie confidently stated that he would become much stronger than the old man thought. Magicians pass all the magic that exists in this world through themselves and then absorb it with their hearts. This is the most effective way to learn how to control your mana, but there is one big problem. This is the limitation of the young master's body. Since Marcus Lindmel called the heir's magic too old, he wanted to know what kind of spells the great magician used. The eager-to-learn guy was in awe of what he saw, but after a few minutes he closed the book thinking that it was too complicated. In order to use her knowledge, the magician must try hard to feel every particle of mana so that it can pass through the body and skin. The guy did not understand who was capable of such madness. In addition, he managed to find 2 minuses of the old man's method and decided that the old methods will not surpass him and it is not worth bothering himself with such training. But after a moment he remembered that he was the great magician of the past, Diablo Wolfer. After that, inspiration returned to him. With a smile on his face, he opened the book and said that the old man had opened his eyes. Jamie was determined to read every page of the precious book, which was far superior to anything he had dealt with before. To begin with, he decided to use help from the outside and called his pet. Turning to the black pet, he asked it to spray some mana. Flying up, the black man fulfilled the request of his master. The first disadvantage of the old man's technique was that the absorption of grains of mana by his body has a limit, in which all proportions must be strictly observed. But the young genius could not worry, because this problem was solved by a pet. Chernish, with whom he has a contract, can spray the necessary amount of mana, so the problem with proportions has been solved. The second minus was the body of Jamie himself. He had a limit on the amount of mana that his heart could take. But the inventive magician decided that it was possible to avoid this problem. He distributed all the mana to different parts of the body, and thereby avoided the limit. Jamie was so engrossed in the process of learning the old man's skills that he didn't notice when morning came. Seeing what was happening in his room, the worried nanny was forced to ask the count for help. Mr. Argino Welton could not believe what he saw. It shocked him that the mana was swirling around his son. He knew that Marcus had given Jamie something, but he couldn't understand how his son had learned to control mana in just one night. Overwhelmed with love for his son, he suggested that cute Himi has a lot of hidden talents that they don't know about yet. Turning to the nanny, the master asked not to worry, and to send someone to his door, because it is not known when he will leave his room. In response, the caring nanny said that she would personally look after the young master, so that my lord would not worry about his condition. As he was leaving, Argino Welton understood that his son would become a magician, not a swordsman. Still, he was genuinely happy about his son's prospects, despite the fact that Jamie would not follow in his footsteps. Using his pet as an assistant, the magician continued to master modern methods. After 12 hours of hard training, he returned to reality, because he managed to master such a complex method of mana control. At first, it was quite difficult to control the mana, because her movements were unpredictable for him, but after several attempts he achieved the result. Despite the success, it seemed to him that at that age, his limit was the 4th level of a magician's strength. Judging by modern standards, sighing heavily, he realized that he was close to reaching the 5th level. But the limitations of his body prevented him from reaching a higher level. Alternatively, he could improve his body with one of the methods available to him, but he was not going to risk it, because Jamie's body is too young and weak. The great magician from the past decided to be patient, because he is not limited in the time of development, because the gods will not go anywhere, and he has already gone too far to rush events. After that, with a flick of his finger, he used the invisibility ability on his pet. Since the black man was upset because of the sudden use of force on his body, Jamie explained that he wanted to meet his father, so he wanted to make sure that he did not find out about him. When he moved a little further, he was convinced that the presence of the pet was too weak to understand that he was here. The guy was confident that his father would definitely not notice that he had Chernish. As soon as he approached the room where his father was, he heard that he had guests. The master was surprised that such a busy person decided to visit him. The man replied that he just wanted to greet the local count. The stranger said that he knew that there had never been a problem with religion in the lands of Haze, so he would like to thank the count for giving their genus cult a chance. In response, the swordmaster said that he thought it would be very nice to help his people, so he decided to give their cult a similar chance. The cult member took these words ambiguously, and wondered what he meant. The count replied that he always strives only for the best, so he decided to make the cult of Janus the largest in his lands, because now many people support him. The representative of the cult took these words as a kind of warning that the people of the land of Haze should not be considered great worshippers of the gods. He decided that he should treat the local count more seriously than expected. After that, Ariano Velden offered to end their conversation, assuming that the representative of the cult is a very busy person. Saying goodbye, they exchanged pleasant compliments and wishes. Still, the cult member understood the situation perfectly. The head of the Walton family was forced to show sympathy, although in fact he was suspicious of the emergence of their cult. Being nearby, Jamie couldn't help but see who his father was talking to. Looking at the sudden guest, he only justified his guesses. The sign of the crescent moon with a yellow sphere and the dark aura emanating from the cult member told him that it was Janus. The guy was filled with anger because this god dared to spread his influence in the place where he lives. It remained a mystery to him, the reason why his father suddenly decided to make his lands religious, and why he chose the Janus cult out of all religions. A great magician from the past began to get seriously nervous because he could not allow this to happen. Due to some circumstances limiting the ego's freedom of action, he had few options for solving the problem. He understood that this religion was officially allowed by his father, so the only way to get rid of it was to force him to drive them out. As soon as Jamie entered the living room, his father's mood changed. With a smile on his face, Master Aryeno Velden inquired how his son was doing. He happily replied that he had managed everything. In response, the man assumed that his son liked magic very much. Jamie confirmed his words. But instead of joy for his son, Aryeno Velden thought about something. Jamie decided to ask if everything was okay. In response, the Count said that he thought he would grow up like an ordinary child. The fact is that he understood that living the life of a genius is not such a simple thing. When a child shows his talent, everyone starts applauding him. However, when this talent annoys everyone, the same people begin to make fun of this child. So he was not sure that his genius was really a gift of fate, or vice versa. The thought of this made him nervous and move on to a more serious conversation. Turning to his son, he said that if he does not like practicing magic, then he can leave this business and start doing something else. But if this decision is final, then he will not oppose him. And like a father, he will help everyone in whatever way he can. With a carefree smile, Jamie asked him not to worry, confidently saying that he would never give up magic. His son's intentions were clear, so Aryeno Velden did not object. And yet, looking at him more carefully, he did not understand how a 9-year-old boy could possess so much mana. He could already feel the mana emanating from his entire body. But as soon as he realized that the magic of his son is stored not only in the heart, but also in other parts of the body, he was in complete shock. He couldn't believe what he was seeing, so he asked how much his son had managed to learn from the memoirs Master Marcus had given him. The guy calmly answered that he managed to master all the knowledge that was shared with him. In fact, he also improved some of the techniques described in that book, but he could not admit it in order not to arouse suspicion. Now Mr. Welton realized the full seriousness of what Marcus had told him. Seeing such a transformation of mana distribution, it was difficult for him to imagine how much this child could learn in just one night. Now he had no doubt that Jamie was indeed the one who could become a legendary wizard of the 9th class. It seemed to him that compared to his own son, he was a total nothingness. An awkward laugh surprised the guy and he asked if everything was okay. The father replied that he only laughed because he was especially proud of his son at that moment. Masterfully playing his role, the great magician laughed in response. Next, Master Arjuna Welton carefully patted his ego on the head. At that moment, the great magician felt awkward, because considering his true age, he could not get used to being treated like a child. After this loving gesture, the father suddenly pointed his finger at his son's hidden pet and asked if he had managed to summon it himself. Hearing this, Jamie was frightened and uncertainly asked if his father could really see him. He did not understand how this was possible, because he made sure that he imposed invisibility on the black man, and even checked how hard it was to feel his presence. The father closed his eyes and, presenting the pet, showed its approximate dimensions and assumed that it was something similar to a bat, but with a more rounded body. Jamie really did not expect that his father was so advanced in the sense of mana. He still hoped that he did not understand what the pet was doing with the help of dark magic. As soon as Mr. Welton found out that his son had made this bat with his own hands, he rushed at him with a tight hug and shouted again that he was proud of his success. Leaving the guest house, Jamie was simply devastated. He is incredibly tired of the fact that his parents love him so much. After another tiring dinner, the guy returned to his room and locked the door. He decided to take action this evening. Putting on a long cloak with a hood to hide his true identity, the guy called his pet, which without a word, took on a winged form. The great magician could not allow the cult to settle on his territory, so he decided to find out their motives on his own. For this, he used the power of his pet and left the mansion to check the events in the city. Members of the rival criminal organization operated in one of the alleys of their city. The guy with the purple long hair named Philip was a little agitated because of the boss's order. His friend Jans agreed with his fears, believing that the boss would make any sacrifices in order to achieve his own goals. The man with the scar on his right eye understood that the local count had only allowed their organization to coexist peacefully with everyone as long as they did not cross a certain line. But he was sure that it would all come to an end once they started implementing the human trafficking plan. In response, Philip said that if they were lucky, they would be able to escape quietly and no one would catch them. Since it was about luck, his friend could not put up with such risks. Remembering the Count's love for his own children, Jans declared that they would end as soon as he found out that they were using other children to trade on his lands. He understood that if this happened, then all criminal organizations would be destroyed by the hands of one of the strongest swordmasters in the kingdom. In response, Philip assumed that their boss was simply confident that they would not be caught. But Jans believed that joking with the swordmaster was bad and would not lead to anything good. They did not have many options. Philip believed that they could escape either by running away or by turning their boss over to the police. All the same, they agreed on the idea of fleeing so as not to violate the rule of the underworld, which states that people who bear a certain responsibility in the mission should in no case surrender the organization and reveal the plan of their actions to third parties. Jans wondered if a friend could suggest a plan, considering that no matter how big these lands were, the boss's men would search every corner to find them. Philip replied that it would be better to take a chance, because it is simply impossible to avoid the swordmaster's wrath. They simply had no other way to survive other than escape. While they were discussing how crazy it was to engage in the slave trade in this place, they were already being watched. Of course it was Jamie, and he heard everything they were talking about. At one point he decided to appear, and the guys realized that now their plan was at risk of failure. Jans immediately asked who it was that interfered in their affairs. In response, the young magician haughtily said that the bandits were not in a position to ask questions. His words got on the nerves of self-confident Jans. He shouted that if the stranger decided to remain silent, then it would be the end of him. Both bandits rushed to attack, but as soon as they tried to strike, their enemy suddenly disappeared. Looking around, they could not see where he had gone. After a moment, they began to feel such a strong fear that they could not move from their place. The same stranger appeared right in front of them and asked in a terrifying voice what they were talking about. He was surrounded by an incredible amount of mana extending his hand in their direction. He said with an evil smile that he would like to hear more details. After a moment, the technique of dark magic began to affect the mind of the bandits so that they could not move from their place. As a result, Philip and Jans completely surrendered to the young magician. They told everything they knew about this mission. Jamie was surprised that those guys decided to do what his father despises most. It seemed strange to him that those idiots hoped to succeed in such a matter, being in the lands where the great master of the sword is an earl. Most of all, he was annoyed by the fact that now, not only the gods turn people as they please, but also the people themselves dared to do something similar, no different from those disgusting creatures. It also seemed strange that the boss of these bandits decided to do something similar, although he probably knew his father's character very well. He had an extremely bad premonition about all of this. Using dark magic, Jamie once again began using his mind control ability. He ordered these guys to go to the Count's estate and tell him everything they knew. Under the influence of magic, the bandits unconditionally began to carry out the order. The young master understood that the morning in their estate promises to be stormy. He managed to do a good job of getting his father to investigate the activities of some groups connected to the occult. Having done all that was necessary, Jamie once again resorted to using his pet's wings to return home. But after a moment, two bodies flew past him. Looking around, he realized that these were the same guys he used to tell his father about the cult's intentions. Later, the culprits of his failure also appeared. There were 4 people, but the most suspicious was the boisterous man in the middle. Jamie thought he had already done it, but because of some psycho, the work only increased. Again using dark magic, Jamie asked the stranger how he dared to touch the people who were following his orders. After that, a huge seal appeared behind him. Using his magic, he pronounced that he forbids his wards to die until they fulfill his orders. After that, the bodies of the recently mortally wounded bandits began to recover, filling with the mana of their new master. An employee of the libel criminal organization named Kan Ni was surprised that one more person was involved in this case. So he asked his wards to drag those 2 unfaithful guys and a strange guy in a cloak to his feet. In order to hurry up his bandits, he threatened them with reprisals if they did not proceed with the execution of the order. The young owner was surprised by the self-confidence of the bandits. They stole the bodies of traitors to their organization right in front of him. With tears in his eyes, Philip asked the magician who did not know him to help him. The cruelty of the criminals living on his father's lands drove Jamie out of his mind. He hatefully called Kan Ni a scoundrel and asked how he dares to do such a thing in these lands. With loud threats of death, the criminal used magic and attacked Jamie, hitting him in the head. With a terrifying thirst for blood, he continued to attack the body of a magician he did not know, who interfered in the affairs of their organization. Using his power, the confident thief completely destroyed the body of the guy in the cloak. Kan-ni didn't understand what he was talking about because he hit the stranger with all these furious blows. After a moment, Jamie appeared next to him and wondered if this was really all he was capable of. Frightened Kan-ni was frightened by the terrifying voice and looked around, asking what was going on at all. After that, with a frightening look, Jamie asked if it was fun to kill his partner. Shocked by what was happening, the thief realized that if his opponent was still alive, then all the attacks he carried out were aimed at someone else. In addition, it was the first time in his life that he had seen such an ominous aura emanating from the mage's body. After a moment, Jamie was right in front of his opponent and frighteningly said that the thief was taking on too much, being only a third-class magician. As expected, such words greatly hurt the pride of the opponent's ego. Realizing the danger of the situation, Kan-ni resorted to using a third-class spell called Buster. He believed that even if it could not be compared to the magical explosion of the fifth class, it would be enough to incinerate the small body of the stranger, thus leaving no traces. But as soon as he tried to use his power, he found himself under the complete control of the young master, who offered him to listen to one thing about how the human mind is structured, controlling the feelings and the body of his enemy. Jamie frighteningly said that people feel complete helplessness when faced with a subject who is many times superior to them in strength. He confessed to his puppet that this is precisely why he loves to manipulate those who are much weaker than himself. Although the great mage of the past, Diablo Wolfer, could not yet regain even a small part of his former power, he easily conquered this third-level mage. With no chance of resistance, Kan-ni fell face-first onto the surface. The wards of this villain were simply shocked by the fact that the little magician easily defeated the leader of their group. Realizing that a real monster is in front of them, the trembling bandits decided to run, but it was already too late. Using his power, Jamie said that they should take this defeat as ordinary bad luck. After a moment, the dark magic of the young master captured the bodies of the thieves. Clenching his fist, Diablo Wolfer used destruction magic. Having dealt with the petty thieves, he returned to their group leader. He raised the head of Kan-ni, who was lying on the ground, and ordered him to answer all his questions. The mage of the third level, completely submitted to the will of his new master, lost control over his body and mind. He repeated the same thing as the previous guys. True, Jamie had already heard this and was wasting his time, because Philip and Yen should convey this information. The question that remained was what to do with Kan-ni, even though the mage had stopped his death. But his soul was almost destroyed, so he would hardly be able to hold on much longer. Since he is only a third-class mage, he can be turned into an undead. But if he does so, he will quickly become useless due to his soul. On the battlefield, such an undead would look quite normal, but using it in a peaceful place seemed far from the best idea. Based on the circumstances, the genius Jamie decided to use the second method. A third-level mage is a vessel for a good amount of mana. The guy took advantage of the situation and absorbed his strength. Because of his human characteristics, the mana was overflowing with impurities, but it was not bad. Diablo Wolfer did not expect to be able to use such a large amount of mana at such an age. The second question was how to deal with ridiculous wards. The magician had already given them a little of his mana, but he understood that they would hardly be able to last long in such a state. I had to turn to the abilities of the black man. Those guys had unfinished business, so Diablo Wolfer gave them a chance to enjoy life a little longer. He turned to necromancy, an ability that allows you to revive the dead, but with some peculiarities. In fact, a resurrected person by this power is a complete contradiction to the laws of nature. From this moment, his servants took on a new form. They were commanded to live despite the fact that once they had already died, now they were ready to carry out orders. Although Jamie was able to use the necromancy ability from his past life, this time it was not without its oddities. Some black smoke remained around the bodies of his servants, and the boy thought that he might have made some mistake. Chernish began to get nervous and squeal viciously, fearing that it was he who was to blame. Dissatisfied with Jamie's behavior, his ego asked him not to take everything to heart and not to think too much. The guy thought that his pet actually did everything perfectly. Trying to calm himself down, he played with it like a rubber toy, guessing that he himself had done something wrong. Diablo Wolfer was depressed, because it was hard for him to admit that he had made a mistake in using magic. Usually he does not get attached to his past achievements, but this time it was still a shame that the skills were beginning to be lost. Because of this strange and suspicious aura, he understood that their use is impossible and they will attract the attention of the guards, so the only way out of the situation is simply to get rid of the unfortunate servants. In addition, it will not be possible to return to the genus cult either, because their magician users will also suspect something. But the black man did not agree with his reasoning. The dark pet sat on the mage's shoulder and began to behave very strangely. Jamie yelled at him for biting his master's cheeks. It turned out that he just wanted to draw attention to himself before starting to solve the problem. Sitting on Jance's head, he began to absorb the dark aura that surrounded his body. Diablo Wolfer had never seen a pet do anything like this before. As it turned out, he had no need to absorb excess mana, because in his past life the master's magic was more rational. The little black man swallowed all that volume of the undead's dark aura with difficulty. Now Philip and Jans were ready to carry out orders. But the correction of the situation made itself felt. Cernish was simply overwhelmed with mana and felt a certain heaviness. The young master thanked him for his work and praised him for successfully correcting the spell error. Next it was time to give names to your first two servants. Jans got a new name, Hazard, while Philip got the name Rise. The young master approached his servants, but their reaction indicated that they did not understand what was happening at all. Jamie decided to give them some time to come to their senses. After several minutes of silence, the cold began to look more adequately at the surrounding world. Azard was the first to start a dialogue. He suggested that there was a man in front of him who brought him back to life. Jamie authoritatively confirmed the ego's guess. Hazard could reason based on his previous experience, so he was shocked by the fact that in front of him was such a powerful mage who looked no more than 10 years old. In addition, he noticed his huge and ominous aura. It seemed to him that in front of him was some character from a book he had read when he was little. The young master looked like an ominous creature that should not be in the world. He felt that this magician could challenge the whole world himself. Of course, Diablo Wolfer couldn't help but feel his fear. He suggested that the servant thinks that his master looks like a demon lord. His words turned out to be an accurate description of how he was perceived by these guys. Rise gathered all his determination together because he no longer had anything to lose. He loudly declared that he had no idea who was in front of them. But in his eyes the young master certainly did not look like a man. Jamie was surprised by his reaction. The servant behaved too aggressively and seemed not to understand that his master was in front of him. He assumed that there were some flaws in his spell, but this did not mean that he would simply turn a blind eye to it. With a flick of his fingers, he demonstrated his superiority and strength, and Rise instantly found himself facing the surface. When Jamie began to go to meet him, the servant's whole body began to tremble from the impossibility of resisting. With a frightening look, the young master said that he would forgive the servant just this once, but threatened that if he raised his voice at him one more time, he would not get away with it. The chilling speech made the former thief take his words seriously. After communicating with one servant, the young master warned the second that this also concerns him. That's what subjugating the souls of dead people is. It didn't matter if they wanted it or not, but as long as they were bound by the contract, their lives belonged to the magician. This is the essence of the dark magic used by Diablo Wolfer. Before leaving, the guy remembered an important detail. He asked the servants not to think that he is the Lord of Demons. Polite Hazard asked for permission to find out who their master was. With a sweet and harmless expression on his face, the young master called himself an ordinary dark magician. Although he could not specify that he was also the one who once tried to kill the gods, and having been reincarnated in a new body, considers this goal his only reason for existence. Trying to behave modestly, he ordered the servants to follow the Church of Genesis and collect all the information related to it. In addition, he wanted anyone who might know something about human trafficking to be brought to him. He wanted him to be the one to tell his father about everything instead of them. Faithful Risen Hazard bowed before the young master. When there was silence, they looked up. It turned out that the young master had already left. At that moment, they could finally breathe a sigh of relief. After looking at each other, they began to be awkwardly silent. The guys understood that they could not obey the owner's order, so they decided to do as he said. Returning home, the black man began to worry about the undead, but Jamie assured him that everything would be fine with them, because they were too scared, so they would not be able to obey his orders so easily. In addition, those guys will give information to his father so that he can solve the problem of the slave trade with his own hands. Afraid to get into trouble, the pet again began to pull the owner's cheeks, and dissatisfied with such treatment, Jamie explained that he could no longer allow the cult of Janus to do something similar on his lands. Jamie suggested that the black woman return to the mansion, but something unexpected happened. The magician did not even notice how someone suddenly approached them, then hit him on the back. The stranger himself was surprised that he managed to crash into someone in the middle of an empty road. The young master was a little enraged by the situation. Looking at the stranger, he called him blind, and then he was surprised that it was still a child. In response, the stranger shouted that the bold young man is still also a child. Diablo Wolfer felt embarrassed when he remembered that he was actually only 9 years old. Turning, he haughtily said that this time he would let the stranger go, after which he asked him to be more careful in the future. Strange behavior and speech of the same boy annoyed the stranger. In response, he furiously whispered to himself that the cheeky guy thinks he's an adult, even though he doesn't even have a single gray hair on his head. As soon as the black man heard this, he jumped on his master's head and changed his hairstyle. Jamie was surprised at the sudden commotion. Looking around, he realized that the reason for his pet's behavior was the words of the offended child. Chernish did it only because a stranger joked about his hair color. Diablo Wolfer did not understand how Chernish dared to climb on his head and where his manners had disappeared. Nevertheless, he decided to take this situation more seriously. So he turned to the boy in a terrifying voice and threatened that he should watch his tongue if his life was dear to him. Apologizing, the stranger began to run away. Having fulfilled the wish of his restless pet, Jamie calmly returned home. Still, the guy decided to punish his pet. Chernish felt guilty, while the owner asked him to think about his concession, after which he warned that if he did something similar again, he would not get off so easily. However, the beast summoned by dark magic forgot its manners due to the long absence of its owner. Falling face down into the pillow, Jamie sighed heavily because he was tired, because he used more strength than he originally thought. He understood that now he would have much more to do and that his easy and carefree life had come to an end. However, an enemy will soon appear on his lands. This is the god whom he hates the most, Janus. Despite the fact that Diablo Wolfer had not yet recovered even a fraction of his former strength, he did not care how strong the enemy cult would be. He promised that this time he would get rid of all enemies once and for all. Meanwhile, Hazard and Rise arrived at the den of thieves. One of his companions was shocked that he was still alive, while the servant asked his new master to tell him where the elder was. That frightened boy could not understand why his comrades were still alive, because Han and I was going to get rid of them personally. He couldn't believe that guys who didn't have magic could defeat a third-level mage. But Hazard was not going to play with the old friendship. He demonstratively smashed the wall in his old friend's head with his bare fist and said that he would not repeat his words twice. A thief named Pip did not understand what had happened. He did not see the rest of his comrades, who would surely make a big scandal if they found out that Janus had returned. The bewildered thief understood that these guys had dealt with the rest of the bandits, so in order not to risk his own life, he assured them that he had no idea where the elder brother had gone. But after a moment he was shocked. He learned that Philip also survived. The rebel Philip with the new name Rise asked if Pip was sure of what he was saying. Bewildered Pip, not even thinking about what he was saying, said with a tremor in his voice that he was not lying. And this could be clarified with the others. True, the others were already dead. Oh well. It was clear from Rise's face that he was furious. He had had enough. He needed to find his old boss to carry out his master's order, since the older brother knows everything that is happening in the city, so there is a great chance that he has some information about the Janisa church. Addressing his old friend with all seriousness, he asked him his own opinion about where the boss might be. Scared to death, Pip understood that he needed to give them some kind of normal answer, because otherwise they would blow his head off without delay. In a frightened voice, he suggested that since the boss likes girls and he likes to drink, then you can check out all the bars that are nearby. Hazard and Rise agreed that this was a very good idea, so they decided to go to the nearest bars. Seeing that the guys were leaving, Pip sighed with relief. But a moment later Hazard punched him in the face. He returned because he remembered the hostess's request to find any witness. It seemed to him that Pip was suitable for this role, but he did not know where to hide him, so he assumed that it would be possible to simply tie up the poor man and throw him in the forest nearby. Rise praised his version, but said that it would be easier to close it in the basement of the house. They spent too much time digging for information, so they decided to hurry up and find the boss. Meanwhile, one of those who was absent during the actions of Hazard and Rise returned to their lair. Looking around, the boy could not understand what had happened. All the guys around were unconscious. The child that Jamie ran into on the street worked for these bandits and thought that he would be beaten again because he did not comply with the norm. But as it turned out, he was not in danger anymore. In this case, he decided not to risk his own life and ran away so that others would not suspect anything. The next morning, Jamie woke up later than usual. This was not surprising, because he had to start his actions and it turned out to be tiring. He understood that now he would not be able to avoid meeting with enemies. On the way to the dining room, he apologized to his pet for the fact that he was going to call him back so that he wouldn't catch his father's eyes. As soon as he approached the entrance, he asked his parents how they slept. With a smile on his face, Argino wished his son good morning. In response, Jamie was surprised that his mother still hadn't come. As it turned out, she was hiding behind the door and suddenly jumped out at her son. Playing the role of a sweet child, an excited Jamie wondered how she managed to hide so inconspicuously. Of course, this question was played. The mother began to laugh at the fact that her son was frightened by her jokes, but the boy boldly declared that he instantly straightened up when he realized that this was his beloved mother. After that, mother and sister hugged him, continuing to talk about their love. Then they began to have breakfast, and this time Sarah sat next to her parents, not her brother. Mom continued to hug her and play even at the table, showing a huge amount of love for the child. Watching this, Diablo Wolfer thought that he himself would not mind touching his little sister's cheeks, because they are always soft in children. But as soon as he realized what he was thinking about, he nervously hit his head on the table, realizing that a great magician who was going to destroy the gods should not get used to such a peaceful life. Having finished breakfast, the parents began to discuss their plans. Noticing this, Jamie wondered what would happen the next day. The father was surprised that the children did not know yet. The mother justified herself by saying that because her son had made her worry, she had completely forgotten about it. Most likely, she meant Jamie's technique, which he used to accumulate mana. Knowing her character, he understood that she was very worried about him. As a polite and well-mannered son, Jamie guiltily apologized for his behavior. Mom carefully answered that she understood that nothing would happen to him. After another apology, Jamie decided to return to the previous question, and as it turned out, the Walton family was going to go to the ball together. It will be a huge ball organized by Count Simon and Count Welton, and it will be attended by almost all the nobility living in the north of the Seldom Empire. Mom was happy that the children were attending such a noble event for the first time, while Diablo Wolfer understood that his precious free time would soon end. The evening of another boring day came. After dinner, the young master again used his pet's wings to visit his servants. Earlier, he indicated the meeting place to them, so he went to one of the given cities. As soon as the master entered, his servants got up from the table. Taking off his hood, Jamie asked if they had done what he asked. With a feeling of guilt, the excited Rise apologized for the fact that they had not been able to find out anything about the genus cult, since it was created not so long ago. Hearing his answer, Diablo Wolfer realized that even the members of Libel would not be able to get any information in just one day. After that, he inquired about the success of the second assignment. Everything went well with the second assignment, and the guys introduced their friend's mistress named Pip. As soon as that guy saw the color of the young man's hair, he immediately understood that the Walton family had taken care of their affairs. Rise introduced Pip as one of the members of Libel's cult, that he actually knew that Khan was going to kill them. They believe that this only proves that this guy is not an ordinary pawn. Since Pip didn't say anything, Jamie decided to interrogate him using his own methods. To begin with, he asked to untie the captive's mouth. After that, he began to shout and beg the hostess to spare his life, saying that he didn't know anything, but he would get any information if he was released. He looked up. He could not understand why he trembled so much at the sight of a child. As it turned out, he felt an infinite amount of his frightening power. In response, Jamie said that he had no reason to kill him, and he just wanted the prisoner to do his bidding. Lowering his head, Pip cried tearfully that he would do anything he was told, even find the boss, so that his life would be spared. After the young Master Welton called the poor man too loud, he lost the gift of speech. Further, Diablo Wolfer put his hand on the thief's head and, using his dark magic, ordered him to go to the Count's estate and tell him about everything that their organization was doing. When the boy rose to his feet, it became clear that he was no longer in control of his consciousness. He silently left the Reese house and walked towards the Walton family mansion. Addressing the servants, Jamie asked them not to worry about the prisoner, saying that the Level organization was unlikely to catch him. At least he was sure that his father would be the first to deal with him. Then he ordered the guys to leave the garden and hide somewhere. Noticing a similar reaction, the black man whispered something in his owner's ear. Jamie agreed with his remark and with surprise asked the guys why they were not interested in the reasons for such an order. Having bowed low, the servants replied that the mistress's orders are the law and they cannot obey them. After that, Reese admitted that he most likely understood the motives of their host. Most likely, they guessed what position they were in, after all. Having heard information about the criminals' plans, Mr. Welton would surely destroy the Level organization. And I would like him not to know about the existence of Reese and Hazard. Leaving the building, Jamie warned the servants that he would be gone for a few days, so the guys should behave quietly until he returned. Doubts continued to worry the guys, and Reese ran out into the street. He shouted after his mistress. Jamie turned around and asked the servant with surprise what happened. As it turned out, Philip's personality wanted to know who they ended up being. He knew that they had perished and that there was no way to fix it. In addition, he did not even want to return to his past life. He was sincerely glad that he had become stronger. But he could not rest until he found out what kind of creature he had become. Reese surprised the young master with his curiosity. He assumed that he was now an undead of the highest rank. In response, Jamie began to laugh and Reese felt awkward, which made him apologize for his stupid question. But the young master explained that he was laughing, because people usually ask whether they have become undead or not. While Reese surprised him with his easy perception of reality. These guys seemed like an unusual find to him. Diablo Wolfer had never met such servants. Usually, everyone refused to accept that they had become monsters and lost their humanity. But Reese and Hazard looked like they could become really valuable wards. Nevertheless, the young master explained to the guys that now they are the most ordinary zombies, because he saved their forms before they died. After they became zombies, their strength also increased. So now they are much more powerful than ordinary people. All the same, such news slightly upset Risa, who hoped that at least after death he would gain a special power. To support them, the young master with a smile on his face said that everything depends only on them. And maybe they will one day become zombies of the highest level. Of course, such a speech really inspired the guys. Then the host and his hearers politely said goodbye. Returning home after a long walk, Jamie asked his pet not to think of his servants as pitiful. He thought that they were quite interesting and very much resembled one person from his past life. That night, the house of the Veltons was restless. As one of the members of Libel, a huge criminal organization located in Hayes, decided to betray his association. The Count had to stay to deal with some matters. Therefore, only 3 of his family went to Reagan, the largest city located in the east. In fact, Jamie could already get to this place. He only used the teleportation skill, but he decided not to attract too much attention and used his usual transport. He was already much stronger than before. In addition, thanks to the study of the old man's book, he learned that magic has reached incredible progress and is now radically different from what it was in his time. But the problem is that he has no idea how much time has passed since his death. The events that took place after his death were described in history books. They mentioned an army of demons that attacked people led by a demon lord. Despite some very loud events, there have been no wars in the last few hundred years. Considering all this, it could be said that a lot of time has passed since his previous life. Analyzing the situation, Diablo Wolfer understood that his enemies could not unite. It was even better for him because separately they are much weaker. But in the near future, the priority task was their family ball. As soon as they entered the city, Jamie could not hide his surprise at its beauty.